Well, welcome, Brennen. God bless you for being with us today. We have had a full day, and so far, so good. Dwayne Stinson can tell you that we've been receiving emails from various persons commending the work that this team has done in pulling the speakers that have presented so far together, and the presentations have been exceptional, and we know that yours will be as well.
Right,
Again,
all that pressure first.
we will remind our participants because some have been in and out with us for the day, but there are four areas that we have been focusing in on. One has been the message. That was Dr. Candace Lewis. Two was community engagement and connection. That was Dr. Dana Lyles from Global Ministries. The third one was on branding and imaging and how we create that meaningful presence in our communities. That was Jasmine Smith. And now we have you. You're now going to walk us through the use of technology, how we must use it in our churches now, in this day, in this time, and for this moment. Dr. Bridgeforth, let me give you a moment. Do you want to add something to that before we turn it over to Brennan?
No, I think we want to give as much time as possible to Brennan, just given where we are with technology and the tremendous learning curve that we've all been experiencing over this season.
Absolutely. So, Brennan, we're going to mute ourselves and then we're going to give you the screen. And we are looking forward to all of what you're going
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey everybody. Glad to be here with you. Glad to share the space with you and hopefully share some knowledge with you all and help you all grow in the digital space. As Reverend Bridgeforth mentioned, we all, even individuals who work in communications, experienced a steep learning curve in 2020, adjusting to a new normal, a normal where everything was digital, everything was in the virtual space. It took a toll on everybody, and it was, I believe, a push in the right direction. Um, as myself, Brennan, just to give you a little bit of information on me. And actually, let me bring up my slides here. You'll see I got a nice fancy setup. Yeah, see, I got the picture in picture there. You get to see me in the bottom, I believe it'll be the left-hand corner for you all. But this presentation is about engaging now and the future. A little bit about myself. Hey, I am Brennen Boose, and I'm here because I love to tell stories. I love to share impactful stories and stories that help people to change. And part of the story I want to share today is just about the necessity of digital ministry. I believe we all kind of have an awareness of it, but also how we can do it and how we can blend it into what we already do. I think one of the common misconceptions about digital media is that it has to be something completely new and completely different. For myself, when I work with clients and when I work with churches through GCFA, I'm actually, just to let you know, I do work at GCFA and I am the digital media no, sorry, digital marketing and content specialist at GCFA. And I do most of my work with ministries through GCFA. We we encourage churches to use what you already have. You all create content on a weekly basis. And for myself as a digital media strategist, I work with churches to help build out kind of media schedules and things like that based on the content that you already create, not creating anything new, but just taking what you already have and translating it to a digital space. And one story I want to share with you is of a favorite company of mine when I was growing up, Blockbuster. Um, I was a kid that, was happy every week to go on a Friday night, get a movie, get a game, take it home for the weekend, and make sure I had it back, on Monday or on Sunday before that due date and that, $30 charge you would get for a late fee. One of the things that Blockbuster provides us a great example of is missing opportunities to grow into the future. I don't know, I can't remember the last time I've actually been to a Blockbuster. If you all know of one or have one in your area, drop a link in the chat. I actually want to go visit one just for nostalgia purposes. But Blockbuster had an opportunity to grow and to learn into what was coming, lean into what was coming. Blockbuster actually had an opportunity to buy Netflix. Netflix actually offered Blockbuster the opportunity to buy the company for $10 million. And Blockbuster looked at it, looked at the business model and said, virtual movie watching would never blow up. It would never take off. It was just not a smart business decision for them to jump into that lane. And now, as we all see, virtual is life. And one of the things that was very telling to me, and I think a very real correlation to churches, Blockbuster mainly believed that this was a risk that they couldn't afford to take, rather than seeing this innovation as a risk they couldn't afford not to take. And I think that as churches, we look into, and for a lot of us, this is a new space, being digital, and this space can be scary, and scary from a bunch of different aspects, like, trolls, negative comments, just the content all the time not being as savory or as palatable as we would like it to be. There are a million reasons not to be on social media and digital media. But the one reason I feel like we must is that we are challenged, charged, called to go into all of the world. And I believe that includes the digital world. So we have to have a presence in these spaces. Good old Blockbuster had the opportunity, and I think the real kind of irony in this story is that there's an actual documentary now on Netflix about the last standing Blockbuster. And to me, that's just it makes me laugh, and it also again highlights to me the reason we have to live into innovation and change, and not always be scared of it. We have to embrace it sometimes. So for our presentation today, we're going to talk about a path to authentic engagement in digital spaces. Let me remove my picture for a second so you all can see that. And what we'll do is work on defining and discuss defining your ministry voice, knowing your audience, engaging your audience, and growing your network. All right, so first, the first thing we have to do is define your voice. And that starts with a very simple but complicated question of who are you? Who is your ministry? An awesome quote, and you'll see that I love quotes, an awesome quote from Oscar Wilde: "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken." That quote really leads into this question of what makes your church unique. Really quickly, I need some community participation. If your ministry or church has service every Sunday, type a 1 in the chat right now. Just type a 1 for me. And a second question I'm going to ask is, if your ministry has a Bible study, a weekly Bible study, type a 2 in the chat for me. Awesome. I'm seeing the 1s coming in. I see the 2s coming in. Yeah, I'm liking that. 1 and 2. I like that. Being efficient there. All right, cool. Yeah. So one quick thing I want you to do. Just take a look at the chat and look at the number of churches and people who offer the same thing as your church. On every Sunday, they have church service. And throughout the week, they have a Bible study. So what would make someone come to your church and your church only, and to be a part of your community? That's a question we have to answer internally for each church. It's not a question that we can answer on a large scale. And it speaks to what really makes you special, what makes your community special, what key characteristics of your worship community can people grab onto? And maybe that's a ministerial focus based on your community. If you're in an inner city and you have tons of youth around you, maybe your focus for your ministry is youth ministry and building, safe spaces for youth to, come interact and learn. That is a very noble cause, and it could be something that is specific to your community. And that's a reason for someone to come and join your ministry. Maybe someone with kids will decide to join your ministry because of what you offer. One thing I want to be clear about, though, is that what makes your church unique isn't your services or what you offer. It's really your core values and the community that you have at the church. It's the individuals, it's the makeup of your church, it's your leadership team. Those things are what make you unique from any other church out there, because everyone can do a youth ministry, everyone can do a food pantry, everyone has church services throughout the week. Those things happen kind of without us even, a lot of times having to think about it. And we'll go to those things without us having to think about it. So what will draw me to your ministry and your ministry specifically? That's the question that we have to answer as we go through this. And one of the things that can really help you, sorry about that, get to that understanding is knowing your reality. And to be clear, your reality consists of 3 point of views. And this is your reality kind of in a digital space, or your, in marketing, we call it your brand position. And the first thing I consider a part of our reality is who God says we are. Why does God have your church in ministry in its location with the community it's in? That is absolutely a part of your reality and is one of the most important pieces of your reality. The second piece is who you say you are. Who does your church proclaim to be? Who is your church specifically targeting to be in ministry with? Those types of things. And again, going back to defining your voice, who are you? Who do you say you are? The third point, the third, I guess, piece of the reality is who your community says you are. And the reason why that is a very important piece is because these are the people you're trying to communicate with. And if you're communicating with an audience from a standpoint of you view yourself as helpful and engaging and a lovely part of the community, but your community views you as, just for an example, those stuck up people that go to that church, that communication, it won't flow as smoothly because they have a perception of you that may not be your intended, who you are, or even your intended interaction with the community. And so that's an important piece as you develop a communication strategy to try and figure out and talk about and develop a digital media strategy to communicate with all of your community. So as you define that reality, the second part and the second point we'll go to in this presentation is creating relationships. To be clear, digital media, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's all about developing relationships and developing relationships in the digital space. Another great quote from Rollo May: communication leads to community. That is to understanding, intimacy, and mutual valuing. That last piece, the mutual valuing, is really where you want to build your church, your church's digital ministry, and building that relationship and connection with your community will lead to long-standing and everlasting relationships. When you can define that mutual and build that mutual value between yourself as the ministry and your audience or your community, that's a relationship that, you know, can help you get through times like, you know, what we just went through, like COVID. You can lean on each other for resources, for knowledge, for understanding, for information. But those relationships are built, can be built through digital media. And now, you know, we'll discuss a little bit about how we do that. The first thing we have to do is define our primary audience. Real quick, one quick note, and this is a big one for a lot of churches. Our primary audience on digital media isn't our members. Sorry. I'm gonna say it one more time. I know I might shock some folks, but our primary audience on digital media, your social media, your website, videos you put out, is not our members. Our primary audience are people who are looking for Christ, people who are looking for connection with church, people who are looking for connection with like-minded individuals. And the reason that's our primary audience is because our church folks and our church members more than likely know what's going on with the church and at the church. And so sharing with them, you know, your weekly announcements, they probably get it, you know, when they're in church. But also, you know, they're familiar with the ebbs and flows of the church. They know what events are coming up. More often than not, they have a ton of ways of getting that information just simply because they are members. The people that you're trying to reach are the people who aren't members, the people who don't have a connection with you, who may not know Christ, who may know Christ, or who may be new to the area and are looking for, you know, a church home or a connection. Social media is, I think, 10 times more evangelical than just, you know, fostering our home community. And so that is one thing that we have to do, is define that primary audience. And there are some tools I know of within the United Methodist Connection, like Mission Insight, and places where you can gather data about your community, your local community, and on social media and digital media, you can find different tools to learn more about your community, whether it's more male or female, whether your audience is more in the, you know, baby boomers range, or the millennials, or Generation X. Any one of those cases, you can find out a lot of this information, and you'll use this information later to kind of not kind of, but to really hone in on how you communicate with your audience. And we'll talk about that later when we talk about just which platforms your church or your ministry should be on. So real quick, we'll jump into the different types of relationships. I guess the lowest level is associates. And those people are people who, you know, they know of you. They may know what you do. They may not know what you do or what you offer as a ministry. They rarely engage with you. And they may, you know, it may be a big event that they come to, but you may not hear from them again for another 6 months. For a lot of people, or for, I think a common, you know, I guess a name for some of these people in the church would be the people that show up on, I believe it's Easter, Mother's Day, and Christmas. Those type of people, those are your associate people, an associate audience. Your friends, those are people that, you know, they're pretty, you know, they're pretty familiar with you. You share a lot of in common. They know kind of the real you. They know what your ministry is about. And they casually engage. You know, these may be the members that show up 3 times out of the month, or you know, but you see them regularly. They have regular interaction with you, but they're not necessarily your closest friends. The besties are where you want everyone to be, but understand that not everyone's going to be there. Those are the people that are thoroughly invested in you, invested in your ministry, will share information across the world, will participate, will support, join in, do whatever they have to do to make sure the ministry is golden. And I'm sorry about that. Let me take my picture away so you can see that. They actively search for your content, even on social media, or they search out information on your ministry to share and to understand and know what's going on with your ministry. The goal is absolutely to have everyone in the bestie category, but the majority of people in your audience and the majority of people you will communicate with are your friends and would fit in that associates column as well. Those are the people that you, again, are trying to move in relationship and get them to kind of that bestie column where they'll support you no matter what. And you can get there in the way that you get there is by being social. Social media, digital media is about being social. And our churches and ministries, we can absolutely take advantage of the tools that we have on social media to build communities in digital spaces that mirror and in a lot of ways enhance our in-person communities. Another quote, yes, here we go. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. That is a powerful quote for me because I think for a lot of churches and in my experience in working with churches and working within the church, we assume a lot of information gets to people. Like one thing, we assume if we post about service on Sunday, everybody's going to see it that likes our page. We assume that if we post about an event on social media or something like that, everyone's going to see it and they're going to know about it and they're going to be excited about it. That's not always the case. One, because of algorithms on social media, which is something that I fight on a regular as a communicator and a digital media strategist. The second is sometimes that shared value isn't communicated through just a flyer. Sometimes that shared value isn't communicated just through a post or even someone reaching out one time and saying, hey, you should attend this. So that communication of the value of someone being a part of your ministry, supporting your ministry isn't always communicated. And the way that we do that the most is showing that, we value our audience. We value the people who decide and choose to be a part of our ministry or, like a post or comment on a post. We have to show them that we value them and that they also can find value in a connection with us. And the way we do that is by dating our audience. Social media and the way I like to think of churches, ministries, and even, just brands in general on social media is as a person. Personalizing your brand, personalizing your ministry will help you to understand how best to work in social spaces, social media and digital spaces. For myself, I have many relationships. But what I can say is the relationships that I value the most are the ones that, we took some time and we built something together. We built kind of time of, relationship building talks. We shared information, shared laughs, shared tears. And the one thing that, sometimes we do, and I'm guilty of this as well, especially in digital media early on, is that we don't take the time to really invest our time into these relationships in digital spaces. So from a standpoint of, as a ministry, simply posting content isn't enough to engage your ministry. You have to be, you have to go online as your page and say, like a graduation photo from one of your youth, or an adult who is receiving a graduate degree or maybe an undergrad degree, liking that, sharing that content, celebrating with people who celebrate on social media, crying with people who cry, letting people know that you as a ministry care and extend that that same level of care that you would in a personal setting or in an individual or face-to-face setting in the digital spaces. That helps to build that relationship and connection. And the wonderful thing about digital media, which we all know, is that it's not limited geographically. So you can create these types of connections with people all across the country. And figure out ways to build those relationships and kind of take each other on dates, taking it slow, not necessarily jumping in and the first post you give someone is come to our service. Maybe the first one is, how can we pray for you this week? And maybe that can just be a simple post on social media that someone sees and draws a connection from in the moment of needing prayer. These are the types of things that we can take from what we do every day and what we do in person and translating that to digital media. One of the things, and kind of just to highlight this strategy, is a strategy I use and encourage everyone to use on social media and digital media spaces, is the 80-20 strategy. And that is sharing and posting 80% content, 80% of your content being, content that your community cares about, and that doesn't necessarily promote or share anything about any events or any services, any ministries of your church. And the reason I say that is because that shows that you care about your community. You care about what's going on. You care more about them than them attending your service. And I believe that is a place that we all should be, that we should care more about the individuals, especially in the digital space, and making sure that, wherever they find connection, wherever they find love, wherever they find a home, that they are well. And sharing, it could be different information on events in your community. Maybe it's a food pantry in your community or something like that. Sharing information that your community finds valuable will then place you as a resource in their brain, in their mind, and in their friendship palette. And when you're a resource, people come to you more often, and they may be more inclined to, say, attend a virtual Bible study or attend an in-person Bible study, attend a church service, attend a community park, or a community cleanup day, or a community just party that you all throw in celebration, or as an evangelical tool. Evangelism tool. This is the I guess the long game of social media. You have to take time, again, to date your audience, and build that relationship. Show them that you have value and you can give them value in their life, and they will in turn share that value back with you. In a number of different ways. It could be monetarily, it could be, through volunteering, it could be, through resourcing your church and using their relationships to put you in contact with the right people in your community. There's a ton of different ways, but you have to start by sharing with your audience, sharing value with your audience and things that they find valuable first. The last thing, and this may be the thing you all wanted to know the most: how do we find our place in these digital spaces? I'll start by saying this. Every church isn't meant to be in every place. Partially because we all don't have the resources, the knowledge, and understanding to exist in all of these places. But we all can find a place, and we'll discuss a little bit about how we do that. Everything will line up perfectly when knowing and living the truth becomes more important than looking good. Whew, that's a quote. As we've talked through this and knowing who we are, understanding our audience, and being social, your church, your ministry, where you should be online and in what places, it's defined by where your audience is. So, for example, if your audience is primarily, if you have a younger, more youthful, maybe college age ministry, and your audience is primarily on Instagram, your ministry should be on Instagram. having a Facebook presence and a Twitter presence could be beneficial, but your primary place for that ministry will be Instagram. And it's the same thing for Facebook. In Facebook, the demographics are a little bit for, I guess, more of a middle age and an older kind of age range. That's the primary audience on there. If that is your ministry and that is where, you know, the majority of your members are, and where the majority of your members participate in digital media, your church should absolutely have a Facebook page and a Facebook presence. It should also probably have a Facebook group, in a place where, you know, again, you can kind of build in private engagement moments and private moments of community for your ministry and for the people who support you. Just to kind of go over the big ones and the big places kind of in digital spaces where, you know, you can connect. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, those are the big four in social media. And they're the place where where most people engage, connect, log on. They have high number of users, number of daily users. Choosing again where you are in these spaces is a case by case scenario, and it's based on what you have available. For example, Instagram is a platform that is primarily visual driven, and so if you are at a church where you don't have you know, someone who takes great pictures, or, you know, you don't feel confident as a ministry in taking great pictures, Instagram probably isn't the place you should be. You should be in a space that is more text driven or offers the option, and that would be more of a Facebook or a Twitter space, or Twitter. Those platforms are built more for text and engagement, you know, through conversation in that manner. YouTube, again, that is a place I hope that we all have explored in the last year with everything going virtual. But it is a place that is, you know, video driven. If your ministry doesn't create great video content, promoting a YouTube channel probably isn't the best place for you. I encourage finding whatever platform, you know, again, matching whatever platform your audience is on with your ministry and focusing in really on one platform. I would suggest that all churches start with Facebook, and start with a Facebook page and build from there. You know, learn your style, learn how often your ministry wants you to post. I mean, your audience wants you to post or wants to hear from you. Those are all the things you can learn from one platform and then translate that to other platforms. You can then expand into Instagram, expand and build your audience in Twitter, and all these other spaces as you build capacity. Trying to focus on all of them at once will, you know, just bog you down and be troublesome. It's troublesome for me as a communicator sometimes. And since a lot of these positions are, and a lot of times, you know, it's not necessary, your social media and digital media channels aren't necessarily handled by a staff person, and a lot of times they are volunteer. You have to think about that in the time that they can dedicate to, you know, your ministry's digital media channels. And so using your time and energy in the most efficient way, starting out small and building out is the best way to begin to build your digital community and help people engage and gain a better understanding of your ministry. And Dr. Daniels, you jumped in on me. We almost done?
I did. I
All
hated
right.
to. I hated to. But
Okay.
we're at 2:35, and I wanted to
That
give.
was actually my last slide. You see?
Oh,
Look,
was it?
I did it.
Thanks.
I did it,
Okay.
y'all. I did
See?
it.
Yes, you did. But I wanted the participants to have an opportunity to get in some Q&A with you on
Absolutely.
the main stage.
Mhm.
But I know that we need to announce that you're going to be doing a masterclass as
Yeah.
well. And so, you know, if you want to go deeper, I'm sure that he is going to go deeper because you had us spellbound. Okay.
Spellbound. Oh
That's the
Lord.
thing that we needed to say. Now, you did say one thing that hurt my feelings.
What was that?
You talked about my age, and you are correct. We must understand what engages the generations and then be able to apply that as needed in the places where we are. So for our participants, the Q&A that you have, please, and Dr. Cedric has indicated that we need to put that in the box. If you go down to the bottom of your page, it says Q&A. If you would put those questions there so that we can pose those to Brennen before he leaves us and we prepare to transition to this next go round. But you know, it is amazing to me, and Dr. Bridgeforth can speak to this as well, that each and every one of our main stage speakers, you all have built upon the goal of this day for all of our churches.
Awesome.
And each message has really filled out more information for us, given us more tools that we can and must use. So do we have any questions that are coming in? And Dwayne has indicated that we have until 2:50. And so if you would put your questions in, Dr. Bridgeforth and I will monitor those for you. Dr. Bridgeforth, let me let you start with Brennen and just kind of tease it out, because we heard a whole lot in these last 40 minutes or so.
He'll do it every time. He'll do it every time. And Brennen, one thing I appreciate about your approach, and I'd like for you to just kind of extrapolate it a little bit more. You know, earlier, Dr. Candace Lewis talked about the generational presence of the various generations in our church. We talked about them with Dr. Lyles. We talked about just different levels of engagement within our community. And I think what's underneath what you do and what you bring to this work, and I think what COVID and you know, quarantine church and all that has brought about, is it has smashed that old understanding of this generation does this and that generation does that. So can you talk about the mindset that is most helpful to really exist in this? I learned a new word earlier today. Hold on, I want to be smart. Learned a new word from Dr. Lewis today.
I know what it was.
Phygital, in this phygital space. Right? Physical and digital simultaneously.
Yes, I learned that same word.
So what is the mindset we need to bring, whether we are 106, whether we 6 or 66, what is the mindset that's needed in order to be evangelistic, to be prophetic, and to be engaged in this phygital space?
Absolutely.
You know, that actually reminds me of a quote that I was supposed to have in here, but I realized it wasn't there as my second one. But it talked about how brands and ministries in the digital age, it's our responsibility to go and to go out and engage our communities. And so as we find spaces where we can go and where we can be present, it's our responsibility to be there. And so for myself, again, when I work with churches, and my approach to this is to, one, provide the balance that we all seek, to be the solution in a lot of things. So when we're on social media and we don't see content or you know, a post that is savory or that we think is, you know, Christian or something that we really want to see in general, you know, we have the opportunity in these spaces to provide an alternative, to be a difference, to make a difference in these spaces, and to offer, you know, just a different type of content.
Yeah, thanks. David Brown has a question here in the chat. It's, how do we get trained persons to join our technology? So can you talk about what trained looks like? Because in my day, trained meant you went to school and you got a certification in something, but trained in your day means something different. So can you talk about that? Yeah,
honestly, the best way, in the way kind of I got into this, is connecting with youth, and that primarily being because, like, you know, I'm realizing I'm 33 and I lean on my brother a whole lot, my younger brother, you know, and even as a professional in social media and in digital media as, hey, what's going on? What's new? Talk to me about TikTok. You know, I thought I was I thought I was a savant, and then TikTok dropped. The one thing that I've learned in this whole digital media space is there is no such thing as an expert. It changes too quickly. And so you're always learning, you're always changing. Finding trained people is honestly the thing I would do. It again is embrace and this is a great opportunity to build you know, a youth ministry and to give them school skills and tools to use one in the workplace and beyond, and use for themselves. You know, a lot of, you know, the for most social media platforms, the most engaged users are kind of youth and young adults. And so if you can build those connections at those stages and help them to, again, find value in what you're offering them, find value in learning the tools, and find value one in communication. I think that especially in the Black community, communication is something that you know, we all can learn to do better and learn to and learn to embrace more communication beyond just our circles, communication with each other. I mean, I know communication will probably help a lot of Black families too, some communication training, but you know, as far as it's hard to kind of give a direct answer to that question. One, because there aren't a lot of, you know, trained communication professionals who want to work in with churches and want to work in kind of these ministerial areas. And sometimes is because of the restrictions that come with it. But you know, I think we can, one, again, build through our relationships that shared value with you know, some of our younger individuals or people, you know, who work in the field in general, who may work in the field and attend your church, who may want to offer you know, their expertise or their assistance with the team. I'm sorry. Let me say that first. Putting social media on one person at a church is a sin. It should be a sin. It should always work as a team. You should absolutely work as a team and build out a team that has shared responsibility and you know, shared authority to operate and work in these spaces. Putting it on one person, it's a full-time job.
It is.
It's my full-time job, you know, so I can tell you that it is absolutely a full-time job. And to try and put that on one person, or you know, even if they are paid staff or a volunteer, is
they're gonna need some team members. Right. So Brennen, let's get you to take that out. We have a few more minutes because Jasmine Smith in her masterclass, and she's going to be on the main stage at 4, indicated to us that when we're maneuvering across the various platforms, that we need to learn how to speak the language.
Absolutely.
And, you know, for us in the church, my members, some of which are on this session today, have said that, well, you know, Pastor, we can always depend on you, that if we have 10 minutes left, you're going to fill up those 10 minutes because you're going to preach another sermon.
Absolutely.
But, absolutely. Who said that?
I did.
Oh. But how do we, as pastors, team members, leaders in the church, how do we start to understand when we're dealing with the various platforms, the language that will connect and that will engage? How do we do that?
And Pastor Daniels, Dr. Daniels, you might get a little upset with me one more time, but the one thing, the one thing that is very important on digital media and in digital spaces is to get to the point, to be quick to the point. Twitter is a great example. You have 140 characters, not 140 words, to get to the point. Or you have to start another tweet and they may not see the second tweet. So in terms of social media, again, it's delivering that value, one, in a way that they can hear and understand. And you know, and this is, again, it leans back into knowing your audience. For myself, You know, my typical lingo or conversation and the content I engage with the most is a very informal, you know, kind of laid back style. If I see a post that is real corporate or, you know, real formal, I'm not gonna probably engage with it, and it's not gonna be for me. So knowing your audience and who you're talking to is very important. If you have, you know, a more traditional and formal church, your post may have more of a formal feel. If your church is, you know, more laid back and your uh, 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 a little less conventional, it is absolutely okay to, you know, post like a LOL or use
Right.
emojis and things like that.
Got to
Like,
learn the lingo.
right, yeah, and
Okay.
you learn that lingo through understanding your audience.
Right. And I'm gonna ask you this one last thing because we're under 4 minutes before
Mhm.
we pop out of here and we go over to the other part. But one of the things that I learned, even as we were planning for this event, was we created a video. I
Mhm.
did, and it was 3 minutes. And they told me it was too long.
Way too long.
And I had to get it down to 2 minutes.
Mhm.
And that was not easy.
Mhm.
But what I learned after I had to do that for this particular project, I have now been doing that every Sunday for the intro video for my worship service.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to try to get it down even under the 2 minutes.
Yes.
You know, just like you say, get to the point.
Mhm.
And so, what are your final words for us? You have 3 minutes. What are the three things? What are our three takeaways from
Three
your
takeaways.
session that we've just had with you?
Absolutely. Three takeaways. First, be authentic to yourself, know yourself, find yourself, be authentic to that. Second, know your audience. You have to know who you're talking to. You have to know who you're communicating with, how they communicate, and where they are in digital spaces. And the last one, be social. You know, love on the people. Let them love on you. You know, even, and one thing I'll say again, even embrace some of the negativity. There are cases where, you know, a comment or something like that absolutely just needs to be blocked. But if someone didn't like a service or something like that, embrace it. Ask them more about it. Why didn't you like it?
And do better next time.
What can we do to improve? And that will
Yeah.
only help you to speak to and engage a larger audience.